Hello and welcome to the channel. I am here for a list video for you guys. Now for this list video, I'll be going over some reasons why I believe that physical music media is better than digital music media. So yeah, I do got a list of 4 things right here on my laptop, of course, so I'll be looking at that for my list. Just so I don't forget, of course, but yeah, now I realize I've already done a video like this before, a discussion video about physical music and digital music, but I do want to give my reasons why I do prefer physical music media. For those who are wondering, I do collect CD most of the time. I used to collect vinyl, but not so much these days. But I don't have a problem if you do collect vinyl. And this is going for all physical music media, whether that's CD, vinyl, cassette tape, but I'm going to be more favorable to CD collectors, of course, since, I am one myself. And there's obviously more pros to it, I think. And I understand that there's going to be a lot of people that might disagree with this video, especially if you are someone that does collect digital music. Now, I use the word collect digital music very loosely, considering, what's there to collect. But yeah, I know some people might say, well, with digital, it's right there, it's much more convenient. We have the music right there, and CDs and physical music just take up too much space, and, they're an outdated way of collecting music. I know some people might have their complaints. Now, I understand that there are pros to collecting or, using music in the digital world. I understand that it is definitely more convenient, but that's all stuff I'll get into. And this is also coming from someone who used to purchase music a lot from iTunes, especially back in my teenage years. So let's go ahead and get into the list of why I think physical music is better than digital. So first one is basically just kind of simple. It's basically supporting the artist. Now, yes, you can technically support the artist, with Spotify listens and, all this and that. I understand that, there's digital ways to to support the artist, but that's not really how I feel like the artist intends the listener to be, especially, when you consider iTunes. Now, I'm not sure how many people still use iTunes these days, but, with iTunes, from my experience with it, you can only you can choose to, only purchase a handful of songs from an album. You know what I'm saying? Whereas a CD, you can listen to the entire thing because the entire thing is right there on disc or on vinyl. You know what I'm saying? So it's one of those cases, I feel like, sure, there are digital ways to support an artist, but I feel like it's more beneficial, when it comes to physical music media, I think. And it goes for a lot of things too, like collecting t-shirts and, all this and that, band merch. Basically, finding a way to buy some band's material. So yeah, that's just something to keep in mind as well. So the next thing I do want to bring up is that it's cheaper, and this is for the most part. It's not all the time you'll find CDs cheaper than albums on iTunes, for example. There are some cases where, CDs can be a little expensive. I do realize that. I mean, Tool's latest album, Fear Inoculum, is definitely not sliding out of this one. I mean, I paid $50 for my copy. But yeah, I understand that, there are some cases where CDs can be expensive, but most of the time, most CDs do range around the price of $13 or $12, somewhere around there. Somewhere around there is usually the typical price with CDs, unless you're shopping at FYE, which, is $20 per CD, which is just ridiculous, I think. But yeah, so it does depend. But from my experience, I shop at my local exchange and I get some really good deals from CDs there, which is why it's one of my favorite places to go and pick up CDs. Like, you can find CDs for like $7, which is pretty cheap, actually. It depends on if they're used or not. Sometimes even the still sealed copies are not too pricey either. Like $10. I don't have a problem with spending $10 on a CD. Especially if it's still like sealed and it's never been opened and things like that. So yeah. And especially considering eBay. Now, eBay I've been using more these days. I've been finding CDs for very dirt cheap, actually. Somewhere around $2.50, $3, usually around that price range. I mean, it's really cheap. I mean, you'd be surprised of how cheap some CDs are, and they're from really good bands too. So, yeah. So I think the prices is definitely one thing that is definitely a pro to CDs. Now, like I said, I don't know how many people still use iTunes, but I remember, seeing some prices for albums, like entire albums on iTunes, and the prices, I mean, they're not expensive, but they're not exactly that cheap either. I don't know. I just feel like CDs in general are cheaper, and especially the deals that you can find with them. I remember finding a 4-disc Led Zeppelin CD set. I mean, 4 CDs. Paid $20 for them. That's not bad. Now, some people might say that $20 is a little too much, but I mean, come on, for 4 CDs, that's not bad. But yeah, so I think the prices is definitely something that is another kind of pro to physical media. Now, this mainly goes for CDs, of course. Vinyl is pretty expensive. The standard price for vinyl is usually around $21 to $22, somewhere around there. Sometimes even $30, depending on, the album, like if it's a double album or something. But yeah, the prices is definitely one thing I definitely see a pro to physical music media, at least for CD. So the next thing is that you can have the CD and the album on digital. Now, I know some people might not understand the whole concept of CD import. If you have a disc tray in your laptop, of course, you can import the CD to Windows Media Player or iTunes or, whatever. You can have the CD, digital as well. I know some people think that if you have the CD, like if you have the album in physical, there's just no way you can have it on digital. Like, well, there's not much you can do with it now. Well, think again, because there was CD import, of course. I've been using, it's something that I've just been having a, an open mind to. Because like I said, back in my teenage years, I did mostly use iTunes, but I mean, it's just more satisfying collecting CD, of course. And like I said, you can have the album on CD and digital. Now, this is again, kind of in favor to CD opposed to any other physical media in music. But I really don't know much about the others. I don't know if, there's a way you can somehow import vinyl to digital or cassette tape or whatever. But yeah, this is mainly going for CD collectors, of course. And that's one of the pros I definitely see with it, is that you can have the album on both. So, you can have it sitting on your shelf and on to go. You know what I'm saying? Like, you can take it on a jog or whatever. And it's a really satisfying thing, I think. So the last thing I do want to jump to is that the overall collector's value of it and the memorable moments that you have going to CD shops, record stores, all this and that. And this also goes into that whole idea of feeling like you own the album. Now, I don't know about you guys, but from my experience, with collecting CDs, I never really felt like I actually owned an album if I, just get the album through iTunes or something like that. No, you actually have this feeling that you own the album. If you actually have the CD in your hands, you can flip through the lyrics booklet or, look at the band artwork, the band photo shoots and stuff like that. You know what I'm saying? The same goes for vinyl too. This isn't just for CD. Just the feeling of actually holding the album in your hand, just looking at the album cover and just have that satisfying feeling of you feel like you actually own that album. You know what I'm saying? You can't really feel that way when you just look at it through a digital screen or whatever, which, I understand is more convenient. I do realize that, again. But I mean, there's no other way around it. It's definitely more satisfying. And also the memorable moments that you have, you know. I don't know about you guys, but I actually do remember where I got each and every one of my CDs in my collection. I know that's really crazy to think about, but I can pull out any CD from my shelf right now, and I can tell you where I got it from, whether if it was on, you know, a website or, you know, at some record store or whatever. It has that memorable feeling to it. Like you can look back and say, hey, I remember when I got this album at this store, and I remember when I got this, you know, at that year or at this time or whatever. And it also has that sort of challenging feeling to it as well when you are looking so hard for an album that you're looking to get. It's a really satisfying feeling when you go into a CD shop or a record store, you know, whether if it's an Exchange store or FYE, you know, wherever it may be. You have this feeling that, like, when you find a CD that you've been looking for maybe months, maybe even years, and you find the CD sitting in the store, and you're like, after all this time, I finally found it. So there is that satisfying feeling as well. Like, you actually held out for as long as you did to find that album in stores. I mean, what do you digital guys have going for you? You know what I'm saying? Like, you can easily search up, you know, the album on Spotify or something. Now, I understand everything's not on Spotify. That is one thing I do understand. I mean, for the longest time, Tool's music wasn't even available through Spotify. But yeah, you guys know what I mean. It has that feeling to it that, like, once you have it, it has this really significant and satisfying feeling when you find the CD you've been looking for in stores. One album that actually comes to mind for me was Yes's album, Close to the Edge. I can't say that I've been looking for that album for years, but it was an album that I've always wanted to get, you know, ever since I became a fan of Yes. And when I found it out at the Exchange store one day, I was like, wow, you know, can't believe I finally have it now. I can't believe they had that at that store that day, you know. So it does have that feeling to it as well. And that's really all there is to it, you know what I'm saying? I think it's pretty self-explanatory. And, you know, just the trips that you have going on, just collecting CDs, like going, you know, out and just trying to really hard to find some CDs you want to get. You know, you look at multiple CD shops, and it's a really fun thing to do as well. And like I said, it has that collector's value. You know, you actually feel like you own the album if you hold it in your hands, you know, opposed to just looking at it on a screen. But yeah. So there you go, guys. That is my list of reasons why I believe that physical music media is better than digital music media. Now, like I said, I understand that there are pros to digital. And I also understand that there are some, you know, albums that you can't get on physical, especially when it comes to certain EPs. I have noticed with some EPs by certain bands, you can't even get on physical at all. You can only, you know, get them through digital format. So I understand that there is that as well. But I'm talking from an overall standpoint, like which is overall better? For me, physical media for music. Well, there you go, guys. That is my list. Did I miss any? Let me know what you guys think. Is there any other reasons why you can think physical music media is better than digital? I'm open to hearing your thoughts, so let me know your thoughts. Thanks for watching. Have a nice day, and take care.